to sponsor this community access television coverage of the Millar City Council in action.
Council audience, the hour is 7:30, and this is the 86th regular meeting of Nelson City Council. I'll ask the administrator to lead us through the agenda.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of Council. First item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda, and there is one late item.
Move adoption with the late item.
All those in favor? Motion is carried.
Item 2 is the adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on November the 8th.
Adoption.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion is carried.
And item 3 is an audience with representatives of the Kootenay School of the Arts and Mr. Ron Welwood concerning the David Thompson Library collection.
Come front and center, Francis, or anybody else? You know, pull up a chair.
I have some handouts for you, which I will pass around. It's a 4-page thing, which is pretty straightforward. The first page is the policy that KSA has adopted about the art and writing collection at the David Thompson Library. The second is a statement of our needs as related to the library, and the third page is a list of the materials that are of concern to us, and the possibility for their phasing in of the relocation of these materials. The fourth page, just out of interest, is a list of the journals that you, City Council, are buying to add to the David Thompson Library collection on behalf of the Kootenay School of the Arts. You can be looking through those if you want while I go on here. The members of the KSA community are here this evening at the invitation of City Council to comment further on a request brought by KSA to this Council's in-camera David Thompson Library Trustees Committee meeting of September 27th. The resolution passed on September 27th, quote, recommended that Council be urged to develop a policy which would make the art, literary, and journals and other items requested in a report dated September 7th from KSA available to KSA on an as-needed basis. At the same time, giving consideration to the needs of existing users of these journals and other items of the David Thompson collection. Also at that in-camera meeting, KSA's request to borrow several items of audiovisual equipment on a long-term loan from the David Thompson Library was quickly granted. The City has earlier generously afforded KSA access to equipment such as looms, easels, and kiln that belonged to the original KSA when it was at DTUC. The City has therefore accepted in principle that the library materials should be made available to the KSA community. Were it feasible for the City to provide continued qualified staff, maintenance of the DTL library, regular and extended hours of service, as well as an acquisitions budget in order that the library could function as a school or community library, KSA would then be content to see the entire collection at its present location, with the exception of the currently received art and literary journals that you have there. However, because we have been assured by civic budgetary considerations that these requirements will not come about, and because KSA's need for library resources is immediate, we are reiterating our request for relocation of the specified material and equipment. At the September 27th meeting, KSA put forward a straightforward request that would have the currently received art and writing journals, related volumes under the N library classification, back issues of the journals, shelving and records relocated from the David Thompson Library to a central accessible KSA site. Council recognized at that time that any library's primary purpose is to service the members of its community, to bring the user and the material together. Journals requested for relocation are those purchased by city funds on the suggestion of KSA and selected to support the courses presently offered and fully attended by KSA students. At present, these approximately 40 journals are received and stored at the David Thompson Library, but ironically are virtually inaccessible to the people for whom they are purchased. KSA's 80 to 100 students, representing 230 or more course placements, attend classes in the late afternoon and the evening at 3 downtown locations. Writing students, presently at the Sub, should be attending downtown classes in the new year. I'll give you a little history of the art collection, the end part of the David Thompson Library. In 1979 to 80, after KSA moved from its Selkirk Rosemont site to the DTUC campus in Fairview, 875 volumes were transferred from the KSA reading room to become part of the DTUC collection. Further additions were made to the DTUC library at this time, also to support the development of the Kootenay School of Writing, as well as KSA at DTUC. The composition and writing books thus acquired are among those of interest to our new Kootenay School of Writing students. This shows there are very strong links between the David Thompson Library and the former KSA, KSW. A listing of the number of volumes, space represented, support equipment like shelving, records, microfiche reader, etc., are being requested are included with this presentation. The items could be relocated to the Selkirk Health Unit building on Front Street, the intended central downtown administrative center of KSA, as it becomes renovated. It would become, in essence, a branch of the David Thompson Library, open to all members of the artistic, academic, and public community. David Thompson Library hours of operation presently conflict with KSA's studio and classroom hours, and the library is often not open during the hours posted. Present students and faculty of the arts need access to current reading material, close to their studios and courses. Administration considerations about the library could be worked out with cooperation and with little difficulty. As you know, KSA is currently working out with Emily Carr College of Art a system of association and transferal of courses and credit. Emily Carr is one of our nation's most prestigious art schools, and when its representatives were recently shown the art journals and the text at the David Thompson Library, they were impressed with parts of the collection. And I might also add that some of the journals currently received here have been selected in consultation with the library at the Emily Carr College. However, these Emily Carr College visitors were gravely concerned about the physical state of the building and our students' access to the materials. These are the practical and immediate concerns of the KSA faculty and students, and we urge City Council to develop a policy as stated on September 27th, which would, quote, make the art and literary writing journals and other items requested available to KSA. In this instance, and concerning the David Thompson Library in general, City Council alone decides who the library serves, will serve, and how it will serve them. Now, you may have some statistical type questions or whatever to ask, so I brought along all these knowledgeable people here behind me. But before I sort of surrender my chair, there is rather a personal comment that I would like to add about the broader issue of Nelson and its educational character as we see it. Now, you've heard and read many times recently the quotation that Nelson is a university town. This is a misconception. As a welcome wagon representative for the Nelson community for over 7 years, I meet and I talk with well over 200 newcomers every year. Newcomers and tourists, especially those who come here informed and by choice, see Nelson as a community blessed with a beautiful setting, a keen sense of the environment, a strong cultural and artistic flavor, a reliable social service system, and a good variety of educational opportunities. Some of the older folk, the retirees who are coming here, remember that there was a university here, but it is an overstatement to declare that Nelson's image now is as of a university town. Okay?
Okay, Francis, thank you for your presentation. Councillors, any questions, Mrs. Welwood?
Just like to ask your worship, how the numbers going for KSA and how are you finding the accommodation to teach all the courses?
The numbers are, as I stated, 80 to 100 students, and our facilities are sort of presently comfortable with them, but we do want to expand. David would have more precise information about that. And
I think studios right now are quite an improvement over last year, and students seem to be generally happy. Got something on the agenda, I think, for some meetings soon on summer health unit, and I think that would be further help. But we're going in that direction.
Good. Thank you.
Councillor Macdonald?
You've got numbers here for the approximately 3,000 volumes of the art collection, and then you don't have a number for the volumes to support KSW in phase 2.
well, we've just got some under the P, which is right, only the reference was, as you'll see under phase 2 at the bottom of the page. That's in the future, that we would like books, volumes to support KSW courses.
So those would be in addition to the 3,000 above?
Yes, at a later date.
And do you have any idea what the number of those is?
No, because the course literature is a very, very large section, and mostly our people are dealing with creative writing, so the literature is background material. It's sort of not as immediately needed as the art books are to the art students. So it's not an immediate concern as art is. But the reference books and things that are mentioned there are things like thesaurus and dictionaries of various types and things that help people with their creative writing.
I just need to be clear, so when you say volumes to support KSW courses, you're talking about the entire literature section of...
No, it would be selective within that. It's mostly current things because our people are writing modern fiction and that kind of thing too. And to say that is a little down the line, we haven't analyzed how to do that. There is a large portion of, you'll notice, of the currently received stuff is writing stuff. These are mostly Canadian. All these journals are Canadian. This Border Crossings brick, the others, Fiddlehead and that sort of thing is from New Brunswick. There are more journals, of course, for writers than there are for fathers or weavers.
I'm just thinking, I think that would be an area where there might be some conflict where you're talking about literature.
There
are literature courses
but,
offered by MUC, I believe,
and they're used by the public. But as I say, that would be phase 2. Yeah, we haven't solved that through them.
Okay. And what's the word on the Suffolk Health unit? The latest rumor.
Over to
In
you.
February, before the provincial government's ready to tell us when they're out of there. Yeah, I think that's right, in February. So we have no answer from them when they're out of there.
We have looked it over and sort of eyeballed the place that we think would be appropriate for a reading room, a supervised reading room for the art books. It would not be a student lounge type of thing. It would be a reading room, and there would be staff to oversee it.
So there would be no movement of books, assuming this goes ahead, until the health unit is available?
Right, you have to have a place to put it. Certainly one would want an in-depth place where it's put in storage or anything like that.
Yeah. I guess the other area of concern would be, and I'm sure you will be able to reassure me on this, but that administration of a library is a science in itself, and that it's necessary for us to know that library will be administered as a real library using that.
Well, I would like to think that it will be even better taken care of than it is now, because it will be used more often, which is the main purpose of the library, and also it will have staff watching it all the time, and we will also be having volunteers to help it too. I myself would help, and I'm a librarian. So I could, organize the moving records and set it up. We don't have that supervision right now in any aspect.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Just want to confirm, the KSA courses are afternoon and evening courses, and the library, under its present volunteer hours, is only open in the evening. So
3 to 9.
that's the difficulty. Your
That's
students
one of
can't
the
be in two
difficulties.
places at once.
Right, other than the general idea of it's the distance. A lot of our students don't have cars and that sort of thing. If we had these 3 or 4 locations downtown, they're all within walking distance, which is an added feature, if we're going to talk about that, of the city as campus concept that KSA has really taken to, where the KSA is visible in the city in 3 or 4 directions within the city. You can't walk 2 or 3 blocks without sort of bumping into a facility, which tells you that KSA is here. And that sort of just is a very positive thing for the atmosphere of the town.
Councillor Mason?
I was just wondering if, was I correct in getting a little inkling that were the hours to be better where it is now, that it would be, maybe a secondly suitable answer to this dilemma?
Only one of the things I mentioned. If it were to stay where it is, there would have to be several qualifications met. Ours just not being just one of them. Qualified staff, I think, is very important, because I have been up there and found that the books were not dealt with properly. Unmarked books were on the shelf, which gave no indication that they had been acquired by the David Thompson Library. And so they could simply have walked out the door and nobody would have been able to question them. I think that's a very important thing. And then, of course, you get into the issue of the building itself and the accessibility problem.
The actual books that we're asking for have had plastic over them for the last couple of years, so that is where the nature, at least in that building, is. And the books have never been moved, and that was something that when my card came in, they were aghast that, a lot of these books are they're very expensive books, and that is where the plastic is, and that's where the leak is. And it's been there for quite a while. It's been there, it's a couple of years now of having these books with plastic over them with a leak and buckets around them. And a lot of times, because they are so understaffed, I think it's really great. There are some people, I think, like the Chapels, for instance, that have done just a great job in keeping the place open as much as possible, but they're short of volunteers, so that when I was up on Sunday, for instance, they're only open 3 days a week, but they weren't open Sunday, and not the time before that, but the time before that, they weren't open. Quite often to see up-to-date periodicals, I have to ask to see the mail to see what's come in since the last time I was there. So there are a lot of problems if you want to use the library. I think it would be a good idea for people from council to actually go up and take a look. Something that's worth looking at.
So my question is, have you talked to the Nelson University Center, because they were quite adamant that there'd been no talk between any of us, and they made their case, and they felt they were left out of the original discussion.
Well, no, we haven't spoken to them directly, except through the committee, through the David Thompson Library Trustees Committee, on which they are represented. They were not left out of the original discussion. It was on September 27th. That's the first time any of us were in on the discussion which KSA is originating.
They come up very strongly that it shouldn't lose any of it, it should all stay there.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Bartsch.
Is there no way that this can be resolved between NUC and yourselves without having this placed in such a position that, if we go one way, we're being tarred and feathered by one group, and if we go the other way, is there no way that you can work it out between the two?
Well, there's more than just the 2 groups. The user groups of the library are NUC students, KSA students, Selkirk College students, OLE students, the general public, and a lot of high school students. So it really isn't a matter of us and them. and believe me, we're not going to tar and feather you, but our main point is accessibility. I mean, you are buying these books. You have a $5,000 budget, which the Library Trustees Committee administers, and we have agreed to divide that money between purchases for KSA and purchases for the David for NUC, and that money is being spent, and the books are up there, and they are not being used.
No, but ultimately it does come down to, now I had a conversation with one of them from NUC. There had been a misunderstanding on even the books that you wanted. Like they had understood that it was much more than what you originally you do want.
I don't know.
So I just think that perhaps it would be good if you use the two. I realize there's more groups involved, but obviously it's the two groups that have come to us. It would be nice if you got together and resolved and talked it over.
Well, we have tried through the committee, but when the question was put to them, was this proposal acceptable? And I heard them say that it was unacceptable.
Does it have to be done within that committee? I mean, you're all very interested in education.
Well, I would think that that would be the appropriate channel, but if you would like us to have another meeting, that certainly could be done.
I think there's a lot of misconception out there, really. I think another meeting would be good.
There has been misconceptions in the press.
I understand on the part of some of the people too.
Large part of the issue though is that the building is in very rough shape and it's leaking, and there isn't the money to keep it open the hours there, and there aren't volunteers because they're having a hard time getting volunteers to keep it open, so that a lot of it is part, has to do with city council making a decision, and I can understand that it's a tough one whether the city, when it's having to be careful with money, spend the money on having a library and then fixing a roof and doing these things that have to be done, so that you can't just be held on to and kept open 2 nights a week forever with a leaking roof. Something actually has to be done one way or another with that, and so a large part of it does sit with city council that, there has to be some kind of decision there, and for a long time it was held out until the government decided, or the Fulton Port came in, or, there are different things that were being held on to until, and now we're in a position where we're, about to sign an agreement, have full-time students, and we're trying to do something, and those students need that kind of library service. The books are here. We have to do something. And so our concern is not, the misconceptions. We've tried to be very clear about it, and we've really tried to get along with everybody on this. This is just an issue of our students need that material. It has to be open, and something has to be done. So it's I know that it's tricky politically, but I don't think council can just sit on, a leaking building and keep it open a couple nights a week. So, it's a hard decision, but it's not really us or NUC that have to solve that totally.
I was assured last week by the other group, because I mentioned the leak, that it wasn't a problem.
Well,
so,
it's under the 3,000, it's over the 3,000 books too.
Well, I would think a leak would be a problem in a library.
And it's a couple of years now.
So if we took the best case scenario, if the roof was fixed and the library was there and there was somebody there to operate it on the hours you needed, would you leave the collection there? Probably not.
Well, there were quite a few things. Extended hours.
Well, the hours you asked for, that's what I said, for instance.
Qualified help, as well as an acquisitions budget that would continue to what it is now, which is only $5,000. But I don't know that would answer the problem for forever.
I see Betty shaking her head,
Forever.
so I understand.
Forever. Well, Betty, of anybody, certainly deserves to have a go at this topic.
Well, Your Worship and council members, you're all, I'm sure, very aware of what that library has meant to me. And the guiding principle, I think, has to be to satisfy the needs of the students, because that's what it's really all about. That was the original intention, and I think it still remains the intention. It is to serve students primarily. I believe very strongly that the physical condition of that building, and heaven knows I stepped on that floor, and I can tell you that that building was in poor shape 10 years ago, and it's in worse shape now. And I think that it is an impossibility to bring that building into the condition that it should be to house a library of any kind. So my feeling is that if there can be a move of the books to serve the needs of some 100 students, I think that should be the primary consideration for this council. The books belong to this council, and we fought very hard that those books indeed would be turned over to this city council. And I think that you can't back away from that decision. It's your collection, and you must make that decision.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion around the table?
I would just like to say that ever since I got on council, the message I've been hearing is keep that library, keep it intact, keep it together, keep it. That's what I've been hearing. Now I'm hearing let's start putting it up, and I think it's the old divide and conquer thing. I'm really nervous about splitting it up myself personally. And it goes back, and I don't have the history, of course, that you do. I really, I just am afraid that if we let loose off, I guess that dream and that vision of the library, we lose more than just.
Essentially what we're asking for is an establishment of a branch library, which makes sense in many, many educational settings. Our art students are downtown. And if we're looking upon, the community as an educational center, that's where the students are, so that's where their services are. It would still be owned by the city, run by volunteers, as it is now. And it's been run by volunteers for quite a long time. There hasn't been paid staff there by the city for a couple of years now. And you're there, at the goodwill of CIC. So leading it does not necessarily guarantee its lifelong insurance. And then the prime use by students.
I think this will be one of the most difficult decisions to make.
The precedent, however, has already been made, has it not? The Kootenay collection was removed from the library and resides now in the public library.
Museum.
Museum.
And
so, and that was an important part of that library.
Councillor Bell, did you have a follow-up question?
Have you considered what this move might cost and how that might be paid for?
No, but we have done these things before. We have moved kilns and easels and looms and all those sorts of things. Given that the shelving and everything goes with it, and given time, we could undertake it, I'm sure.
No. Thank you for your presentation. Council's heard you, and we'll have to come back with something to see what we can resolve.
The discussion's not over because we want to.
Okay. All right, Ron, you want to?
Yes.
Okay.
This may be anticlimactic, I'm not sure. The reason I asked to be put on the agenda was that when NUC made its presentation on November 1st, and there's been some articles in the paper subsequent to that, I think in a way, it's been a backhanded compliment to myself, I suppose, because of all this publicity. But I feel uncomfortable about the whole thing because obviously it's becoming a political library, as you just noticed. And I want to inform council about a variety of things because there have been a lot of misstatements about the library. So that's one of the reasons why I circulated to you the NDU DTUC library history, which is sort of, to me, phase one, because it gives you somewhat of a background. I believe that was in your agenda package. But I want to set the record straight and answer some of the councillors' questions that were raised on November 1st, because these responses that you did receive at that time were inaccurate. So I want to give you the facts concerning the collection, the building, as well as collection use. In other words, accessibility. If you don't mind, I'm going to read this because I want the facts to be straight. And I am quoting verbatim from both the council presentation as well as the Daily News. Concerning the collection, item 1, it was quoted and it was stated that it's an excellent undergraduate liberal arts collection that doesn't exist elsewhere in British Columbia. Now, the fact is, the collection is best described as an undergraduate library that is outdated in all disciplines, particularly the sciences. But even though dated, some sections are very useful. I'm the first to admit that. Secondly, Dr. Fulton conclusion in her report was that the collection is less relevant today. Those are the words that she used. That may be difficult for everyone to accept, but it's true. Remember that Dr. Fulton was NUC's academic consultant in May of 1989, and she also taught courses for him. Number 3, nothing of substance has been added to the collection since 1984. And 4, concerning this, when someone makes a statement that it doesn't exist elsewhere in BC, this speaks for itself since each collection is unique. But all other liberal arts collections in the province are up to date. And I stress up to date. Second quotation I'd like to give you is that the library includes about 70,000 volumes of books and periodicals from the turn of the century. The fact is, it would be generous to state that the collection now consists of approximately 60,000 volumes on the David Thompson Library site. Remember, the Kootenay was removed, and a lot of the, probably about half the periodicals were removed to the skateboard building. And in 1984, the photography and graphic arts collections were removed to Selkirk College to support the programs when they moved down there. And also there have been losses. I don't know what they are, but I know there have been losses, which is unfortunate. And also, depending on your definition, there are very few collections that do not have materials from the turn of the century. Okay, the third item is that David Thompson, it was stated that David Thompson normally spends $100,000 a year replenishing the collection. The fact is, between 1979 and 1984, the maximum spent on collections in any one year was $42,000, with a 5-year average of $34,250. But of this amount, the average was only $18,600 for normal acquisitions, because the rest of the funding was used for periodical subscriptions as well as reference works. So that's what the rest of the budget was used for. So I certainly wish I had $100,000, but I never did. It was also stated, quote, with parts of the collection, people have gone forward to get accreditation, i.e. Selkirk College Education Program. Fact is, this is a total fabrication. It is true that Selkirk education students, particularly those who live in Nelson, might occasionally use the collection. But to presume that Selkirk College accreditation was achieved because of the David Thompson Library collection is absolutely false. The reality is this is a UBC program offered in Cascar and brokered by Selkirk College. Concerning branch libraries, it was stated that usually these are duplicates of the main collection. They are parallel collections. The fact is that branch libraries of large academic institutions are cost-effective because there is very little duplication. Usually these are specialized libraries. For instance, at UBC they have a forestry library, an education library, a law library, and so on. In fact, the law library is run by Tom Shorthouse, whose father was a former mayor of this community. These libraries are located close to the approximate faculties and therefore they make the collections more accessible. So when Francis talks about an art library branch, it's not unusual. In fact, UBC does have an art library. There is also a statement about the 3 universities, and I quote this one directly. When the tidal wave, earthquake, and cold snap hit at one time, those university libraries may not exist. Then we will have the only one. This is preposterous, actually. The fact is, David Thompson is not a university research library. It is an outdated undergraduate library. And secondly, there are other current academic libraries of quality in the province with large collections. In fact, they're larger than David Thompson libraries. For instance, the university colleges, and I'll only mention those, at Malaspina, Fraser Valley, Caribou, and Okanagan. In fact, if you look at even the college libraries, that's at least 10 of the 20 college and institute libraries in the province are larger than this collection. I'm not talking about quality, I'm talking about size. I'm very concerned about the building, and obviously that was raised today already, and the safety of the building, and actually it was stated that the leak is a very trivial maintenance problem and can be dealt with summarily. It is not a major issue. Well, I think that's not quite true. The original building was constructed as a temporary structure in 1967. Ironically, the newest edition, which was built in 1974, is in worse condition than the first. Apparently, the leak has been an annual event. And ironically, it's over the art materials where they're located under plastic, as you just learned. And I keep wondering who's going to provide this trivial maintenance. You know, so far it's been CIC, but you know, if there's going to be some major renovations or repair work required, then I think again it's going to be a problem for council to wrestle with. You have to remember that the original building, which was moved from the Duncan Dam site, construction site, probably about 30 years ago, so the building is not new. It's quite old. And as I indicated, the 74 edition is the one that's got major problems. So what happens if there are major repairs required, and who will be responsible for them? The collection's in jeopardy if it's not moved. Concerning collection use, David Thompson Library is and I quote, an active research library. There are universities around Canada who are still asking for what we have in that collection. The fact is, it's a fallacy to think that David Thompson Library is an active research library. Within the present context of information technology, it would be best described as a dated undergraduate library. Research libraries are current and support master's and doctoral programs. Interlibrary loans are a common occurrence between libraries, and therefore requests for materials are not unique or surprising, since David Thompson Library holdings were reported and listed in the National Libraries Union catalog over the years that we were in operation. And besides, because of the very low circulation of the library, it almost guarantees that the items will be on the shelves if they're requested. Concerning the relocation of the art and writing materials, it was stated by NUC that it was totally unacceptable. The relocation would make the fact is that relocation would make these resources more accessible to the greater number of users, public as well as students. The KSA location would serve as a branch library. KSA has approximately 230 course enrollments versus NUC's 30. And also, NUC presumes that David Thompson Library is its library. Only City Council has the right to say whether relocation is acceptable or unacceptable. And I have some general comments about access and use. The fact is, it's difficult to guarantee that volunteers will keep the library open at posted hours. On a number of occasions, the library has not been open as advertised, and I think David has alluded to that. For instance, I went up there on Sunday, November the 7th, and it was closed, it was locked. Apparently this has happened on other Sundays and evenings. This makes the facility less accessible and creates frustration for potential users. The statistics between January and September of 1993, excluding July, were that 464 people borrowed approximately 865 items from the library. Now that's a very, very low average for 8 months. I think that's probably the circulation of Nelson Municipal Library, 2 days maybe. Personally, I recommend Selkirk College students to use the facility and go up there and borrow materials that are heavily used at our college. Particularly if they're people from Nelson, I encourage them to use the facility, but it's since been coming down to me that these people are getting frustrated because they go up there and the place is not accessible. But, you know, if it is accessible, invariably the material is on the shelf because it's not very heavily used. So in conclusion, I have a number of statements to make. NUC has referred to a document dated January 6, 1992, which I understand states that David Thompson will, quote, remain intact as a university library until such time as a new post-secondary education development occurs. I submit to you the following. 1. The KSA is definitely a viable and valid post-secondary education development in Nelson. Its enrollment figures are clear. 2. That the original Kootenay School of Art transferred 875 volumes to the DTUC library when it moved from Rosemont to Fairview. That it is ironic that its successor, Kootenay School of the Arts, cannot even claim these volumes. 3. That between 1979 and 1984, approximately 1,700 volumes were added to the DTUC collection to support KSA. These volumes do not include Kootenay School of Writing, materials that were added at that time. 4, the KSA's request is modest and represents a very small portion of the entire collection. Well, let's see, 3,000 is less than 1%. 5, the collection, particularly in the art section, is at risk and should be moved to a safer location. 6, that relocation of some of the art writing materials will place the collection closer to its potential users and also strengthen KSA's position in its discussions with Emily Carr, College of Art. 7, that such a relocation of materials will make them more accessible and available for use by students, faculty, and the general public. This is a raison d'etre of any library. 8, that David Thompson Library has become a political library, and that this council best understands that David Thompson Library situation. And furthermore, that since this is the last council meeting before the Nelson civic election, makes sense that you should deal with the request of KSA without delay. And I'll entertain questions if you have them, or try and give you answers.
I think the best was kept to last.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Is there questions of Mr. Welwood? Was a far-reaching description. Like there's a lot to absorb here.
It's a difficult situation, and I appreciate the dilemma that we're all facing, but I think the biggest dilemma for me is the fact that it's become a political football, and I don't like that.
It wasn't intended to be, I don't think.
I know.
It sure has, I agree. Councillor Rachel.
I don't know if the rest of them know the answer to this, but I'd like your educated response. And if we were to do this, we've just recently had NUC amalgamated with Gonzaga, and it looks like perhaps things are going to happen there. If we remove what you've asked us to remove, is it going to hurt their program?
I have no idea, but I question the fact that it's amalgamated with Gonzaga. Perhaps it is.
No, well,
amalgamation would be an incorrect term.
Yeah,
okay.
so.
Affiliation.
Okay.
It's an exciting.
Well, my understanding is third and fourth year, so they'd offer first, second year here, and then go to third and fourth down there. The other thing is, I wonder about this link. Now, this link with Gonzaga Library, I have no idea what that means. Is
That
it
was a statement
electronic
that was
or
made
what?
at the very end of the luncheon meeting. It wasn't clarified by anyone.
And it's been stated in the newspaper twice
Yes, it wasn't
without
clarified. I asked
clarification.
for clarification and I didn't get it.
But I really don't know.
Do you care?
Yes, in a way I do.
See, I
Because
think
Nelson
we
is
all
my
do
community.
care.
Nelson is my
And,
community.
Yeah.
But you also have to appreciate the fact that Nelson is educationally rich already. It's endowed with Selkirk College, which has well over 500 students up on the Rosemont campus. KSA, CIC, and also NUC. There are other communities out there that don't have any of those. So, you know, when Nelson says that perhaps he wants to develop a university, I think other communities in the area are a little question that a little bit. So that still doesn't answer your question.
No, it doesn't, and I think
I don't really want to.
I don't know if I'm the only one with this question, and I'm sure I'm not around this table. I mean, a lot of us here have been involved for a long, long time
Well,
as
so
well, in all phases of education.
Well, as I said from my introductory remarks, if it wasn't for what I did there, I guess we wouldn't be talking about this, because I suppose I did a fairly good job. But part of the problem is you need a building, you need proper budgets, you need personnel, etc., and that does not cost, you know, it's not costless. In fact, my favorite quotation is libraries are priceless, but they're not costless. And I think that's absolutely true. In terms of this library, you'd have to put in millions of dollars if you want to upgrade it. You know, there has, you know, certainly it's got fairly decent basic information concerning the humanities, but there has been a lot written since 1984 about Shakespeare, about various other antiquities. You know, there's a lot of new revelations that aren't in that library up there. It will require a lot of money, and I don't think that's your mandate. It's an educational institution's mandate and responsibility.
So, hear any more from around the table? I can sense the reluctance, Ron, that this council has.
I understand.
You stated very much that Saturday is the day, and where do we go on Monday? I I don't blame them, because it's a difficult decision to say that we're gonna take part of the library away. What Betty stood for was to keep a library there, and everybody appreciates that history.
Well, I think,
But we've got to make some hard decisions, and we're gonna have to live with it, no matter
That's right.
after Saturday or not.
but this request has to do with relocation. It's
Right.
not removal. It's
No.
still in the community
It's
and
still
it's
within the
accessible.
community, I appreciate that, but it's,
It's like a branch library,
Right.
and that's not uncommon. Even Selkirk has those.
okay.
It just feels like the thin edge of the wedge.
Perhaps it is. But I think we all have to face reality sooner or later. Sorry.
KSA is your institution. I mean, we really want the city to adopt this, and City Council has been very generous to KSA. So, trying to look on as a friendly family member, you're doing this for. We're not some outside party that is asking for a piece of something that you have. We are Nelson.
In regards to Gonzaga and any relationship, I mean, if something works out there, we're looking at this as a community library that's open even more than it is now, well taken care of, added to, that's totally open to the community, and we would never, I mean, it would be open to students that we're taking something through Gonzaga or through Nelson University. We're not taking this out of the community. And I think that's a bit of a difficulty I have with this, is it's not taking it out of the community. And it's not that it's not available to people, NUC, Selkirk, whoever might use it. We're actually making it more accessible.
And I guess I think of it as tearing a page out here and there out of a book and taking it over there. I guess that's how I see it, and I don't claim to be a library person at all.
I appreciate that.
Library?
No, that's not what I say. I'm not a library person.
Maybe it was across the street, you would, or, like it was down here, and if it was open more often. Like, I use that library a lot. I probably use the art section, probably more than anybody else. And I just don't see other people there, and it's really difficult to get to. I'm having trouble encouraging students to get up there and get there in time. And we're not, and the thing is, we're just making it more accessible. It's Nelson, it's open. This idea of splitting things up or making them not accessible or taking them away, that's not the idea or the spirit of what we're asking for.
I've seen a lot of school libraries, and some were perfect little museums where the books were preserved in aspic for all time, and the kids had no access, really, and the books are probably still beautifully preserved and gathering dust, and it's wonderful to have the idea of a of a library being designed for student circulation, for the students to have access, and that's the bottom line, accessibility. It makes a very poor museum.
Absolutely true. I think the good analogy is a grocery store. If you have inventory that's sitting there forever, you get rid of it. You want things to move. The same with the library. It's food for the mind rather than the body, that's all. It's the only difference as far as I can see it. You have to be rather dispassionate. That's part of library science, I guess.
Okay, well, I think you're gonna have to let us do some talking amongst
Please
yourselves.
digest it. Thank you very
Giving
much.
us good
I'm
information.
proud to do that. Second.
Discussion on the way? Councillor Grill.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, when I made a comment when I was not on council regarding the transfer of the books to the KSA, I'm staying with the same opinion, Mr. Mayor. I think it's the books are on an auction block. That's my impression. They're here, there, and everywhere. And I would feel that the original the trustees of the books originally were not the KSA, but rather the David Thompson Society, and then from thence on in it was the MUC. Regardless of how much time they spent in the library and how much time they could afford to be in the library as protectors of the library itself. After the CIC decided to opt out of the agreement with the city, I'm of the opinion, you know, they're a pressured group of individuals. They're in just as bad state. They're under pressure regarding they need the books as well. And it's just a matter of where you're going to put the books. Who's going to get the closest use of them? In other words, the KSA, they wanted books at their disposal, and maybe justifiably so. But the point of the original intent of the library was for secondary, post-secondary education. It wasn't for everybody in general. But of course, it ended that way. But I am still afraid, Mr. Mayor, that the books will just disappear, slightly disappear. Whether we own the books or not, that's immaterial. We will lose it in time. If no school that's funded by the government at present time is secure. Tomorrow they lose their funding. The NUC is self-funded, and we did support them. We've lost faith with them. We've given up on them. They say, "Oh, take the books." Now, next thing they're going to say, "Well, you have to vacate the premises, and that'll be it." They'll just wither away and die. And they are in dire straits. I think it's not so much a KSA just because they need the books. They say, "Well, we have to have the books in order to continue with our programs." What about the school? What about NUC? Don't they need the books? I just can't understand the rationale whatsoever. And I think, in other words, we're playing Russian roulette, Mr. Mayor, and we're going to be the losers in the long run. There's many other things I said years ago, and they've come to haunt the city now. I don't have to mention those facts either. Mayor Rotering can remember something too. Mr. Mayor, just one more comment. Okay. The old philosophy that you have to spend money to make money no longer apply. It's all fast becoming obsolete.
But we're not discussing money here. We're discussing the books.
We are in a way. Yes, we are.
Okay,
those books cost money.
Is there other discussion around the table? Comments? Councillor Taylor?
Your Worship, can I talk to a member of the audience now? Would that be inappropriate? Or?
Certainly. You go right ahead.
Dr. Bartsch, we had a discussion about these books, and there was a portion of the library that you felt could go to KSA, that belonged to the actual arts school. Is that correct?
My understanding was that if there were books that belonged to KSA and had the staff on them, then I would have no argument. I was wading through the library the other day looking for them, and I could not find any.
Okay, well that wasn't my understanding when I talked to you. I understood that there was a number of books that belonged.
That has been stated, but I don't know how it can be verified.
Okay.
Very difficult.
I feel kind of picking up the ball kind of at a late date here, and would it be appropriate now to ask some of the thoughts that went through council in making these decisions, or is it going to be...
Well, in deference to the audience that's here, I've asked Councillor Rotering to look into this in detail, and he's been having discussions. And I think Councillor Rotering is coming back with recommendations to us.
Okay.
And he's worked very hard to get through the facts in this past 3 years, since he hasn't been on council in the last 3 years. He's researched everything, and I'm trusting in him to come back with a recommendation to council that I think we can go to NUC and KSA with. A recommendation. There is a lot there to catch up on, and I think the debate around the table would take us a long time.
Okay.
I'm not saying it isn't possible, Councillor Taylor, but I think Councillor Rotering has taken on a big task, and we'll come back with a good recommendation. And
thank you.
That's part of his committee assignments, and I know he's been working very hard to get there. And I appreciate the letter from former Mayor Maglio, and we've had several other letters, and I've referred them to Councillor Rotering, and I think we'll come up with a decision, and we'll talk about it together, and then go back to the groups and try and come to an agreement. I wish the agreement had been made with the two groups that are involved in the books, but it's become our mandate to finalize, so I beg Council's indulgence to try and get through this. Councillor Rotering?
Mr. Mayor, really briefly, the point is that the library is becoming a political football to the detriment of NUC and KSA and the community. I hope we can defuse it and return the books to their educational purpose, which is the purpose pursued by these people. I hope in a couple of months to have a comprehensive recommendation.
I understand.
And not deal with the issue piecemeal. So I appreciate where the request to reverse comes from at this time, but I agree with you. Let's be cool and let's try to take a comprehensive approach a couple of months from now.
Any other discussion? Thank you. Okay, the motion is to receive information and we beg your indulgence, those in the audience. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Councillor Grill. Motion is carried.
Could I say a word?
Certainly.
Does that mean that it's going to stand the way it is?
Yes, it has been that way all along, Mr. Maglio. We weren't moving until we knew exactly how we were doing everything. And I was hoping for more discussion to come out of this, and it will now.
Yeah, but I mean, is there a possibility it'll be reversed in the future? Or is it all set?
No, I'm asking Councillor Rotering to come back with a recommendation that meets with NUC and KSA and gets it out of our political football field and back in your ballpark to make it work.
But I think it's very important that we know.
Well, I agree with you. That's why I offered to meet with you and why I appreciate your letter. We'll get an answer, proper answer to you.
Perhaps, Mr. Mayor, I should say to Mr. Maglio that, as some people in the room know, I'm already reaching out to the Nelson University Society people. Alvin Norris can tell you that. We're discussing things in a preliminary way. I've already met with David Lawson of KSA. I think I understand your wants, their needs, and we're going to try to reach a comprehensive solution. And that means not deal in a panic with a previous council resolution or your request to overturn that resolution, but just the resolution's on the books. That's true. But a couple of months down the road, perhaps we can reach a decision which will make it unnecessary to take a piecemeal approach. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, please talk with the president of your society.
I understand.
I'm being cryptic.
Councillor Rotering, but the thing is that I was disturbed with the fact that this problem came up at your last council meeting of the year, and there was only 3 people that voted for it. 1 abstained. So how can 3 people dictate how this thing should be handled without further consultation? I just couldn't understand that. That's what if it's in your hands now, and you think you're going to come up with a solution that's going to satisfy the KSA and the University Center, fine, I'll go for it. But I think you have to be very concerned about what we're doing. I'm not too happy about those type of decisions.
Mr. Maglio, it's because of your letter and the others I've got that I've asked Councillor Rotering to come to an agreement with everybody and bring it back to council.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
My fear is not only the library, but what you're going to do to Nelson. NUC and KSA have worked together quite amicably. The one the dissenting voice was not KSA and NUC, but Selkirk College. And people have listened too much to an outsider who knows very little of this. I'm referring to Margaret Bolton. And that is causing not only the division here, but you're going to divide the citizens of Nelson, who've always worked pretty amicably together and considered one another. But if you listen to an outsider who knows very little of the educational needs here, and Harcourt has to listen to his MLA, and the MLA, I don't care what he says, I know he was against NUC from the start, but what's upset me is the fact of people, I wasn't there when the university was turned over to the CIC, so I don't know much about that, but I do know the shock I had when people that we have worked very amicably together were suddenly drifting away, but now there's antagonism. so that it's not just a case of the library. You're going to split Nelson. United we stand, divided we fall. And if we had stood together, we would have had our university by now. So please consider what you're doing. Don't listen to NUC only or KSA. Ignore Selkirk and draw us together.
Okay. Howie?
May I just say a couple of words? We didn't realize we were going to be able to speak, but since we are, I'd like to take this opportunity. Obviously, we're here tonight, this big group, on a busy Christmas week, to support the integrity of Mr. Maglio, who I understand is entitled to be called His Honor, Mayor Maglio. And obviously he's done an honorable thing tonight. We're also here, of course, to support the library. And as Councillor Rotering said, we at NUC regret very much, too, that it has become a political situation. We don't see it that way at all. We really feel that the decision should have been made by the council at the very beginning as keepers of the library for the city of Nelson. Unfortunately, that was not done. We did make one presentation, and we put our minds and hearts on the table at that time, and we were told we would hear back. And what we heard back was the night that the decision was made, which was very sad for us. I usually am here to speak on behalf of the society, but tonight I'd like to say something just as a citizen of Nelson, and that's really where I stand first of all on the library. I'm one of those people that's been blessed with an education from Notre Dame, and with the asset of that library, that university library, and I certainly would like to see that continue for students now and students in the future. And that certainly we concur with what His Honor Mayor Maglio has suggested tonight. However, as Councillor Rotering said, he is asking us to have a meeting, as he said, to discuss what can be done. And that's the extent I know about that so far. But we have great faith in this council to keep the integrity of the library. And as far as if I look in my crystal ball, I think eventually the library for the community will be something like the hospital. People fundraise for the health of the community, and I think they will fundraise for the health of the mind with the library eventually.
Okay. Thank you.
Don't forget over 1,000 people wrote letters over this university, and though they may be the silent majority, they won't forget what's happening and will be watching. But I'm grateful for what has been said tonight by Mr. Rotering.
And our speakers on the wall are not working, and it is difficult. I'll have to ask the council members if they're speaking to speak up because the other people couldn't hear you before. So don't speak with your hands in front of your faces and sit up and let the audience hear you. It's very difficult for you to hear back there, so we'll all have to speak up. I'm going to ask you to have a little decorum tonight and take your turn at speaking. And there's some people that have asked to speak, and I'll try and call those in order. I realize half hour, as was in our resolution, isn't a lot of time. So I think if everybody is succinct in what they say and speaks clearly, we'll get through this without a lot of trouble. So the first one I have on my list is from Francis Welwood. Francis, are you going to speak or someone else? Betty Daniels?
Are you on behalf of KSA?
Yeah, I have a letter from you that asked for David Lawson and Tom Wayman and Betty Daniels and Ron Welwood.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I'll say a couple of words for KSA, and hopefully the others can answer questions and that sort of thing too. There have been some worrying things in the press, and we're here all in a very friendly manner, and I hope that that will be taken into consideration by everyone here. KSA's request last September to relocate and manage and have access to the existing art collection at David Thompson Library came in the response, as a response to the fact that KSA is and was a success. We did not request ownership of a portion of the city-owned collection, and the resolution was that gave the use of the collection to KSA, did not grant ownership to it. And there was quite a lot of input and study before that resolution was passed in November. However, KSA is very willing to accept any degree of responsibility that would accompany the art collection. The modest portion of that the KSA would like to have will be secure and accessible in the new location on Front Street. The matter under discussion here at this meeting is the method by which the city will transfer the assets and the responsibility to the community organizations that are represented, all the while taking into consideration the best interests of the community and of the library collection. KSA believes that possession is the most accurate and inclusive word to describe the arrangement under discussion. To qualify ownership with a number of serious provisos creates rather a cumbersome document which is subject to misinterpretation. I feel that the community should also be concerned about the many unanswered questions regarding prospects of the main collection. It is not just KSA's resolution, which has already passed, that's under discussion here. The main collection is at CIC. There are questions regarding CIC's role as the crucial leaser of the building and of NUC's financial and human resources to manage such a large collection, and how also would this agreement be monitored. So there are many questions yet to be considered that aren't dealt with entirely in the resolution. KSA therefore recommends that the respect for the resolution of November 29, 1993, without calling into question KSA's or any previous council's integrity. We recommend that the input from this public discussion and the recommendations tabled by Councillor Rotering should go to the Trustees Committee for consideration and revision, and then be returned to this council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Betty?
I would like to defer to the other people who are on KSA and speaking for them, because I'm going to speak with your permission for myself, rather than for KSA, NUC, or anybody else. So I would like you to go along, if you will, Mayor Ramsden, to the other people on the KSA list, and I will do this at the end, please.
So, David Lawson. David, did you wish?
Just a little bit. I think that one of the things, just following, the controversy that is ongoing for the last couple of months surrounding the library, I think that a lot of it, from my view, comes from a misunderstanding of the history of education in this community. I guess I'd like to point out that there have been two streams of education in Nelson for over 35 years. One stream being Notre Dame University, the other stream being the original Kootenay School of the Arts. When Notre Dame was closed down, Kootenay School of the Arts was taken and moved into a new facility and given a new name, that new name being, in 1978, David Thompson University Center. The main activity of that school was the bulk of the students were working in the visual arts, creative writing, music, with a rural education program along with it. With the closure of David Thompson University, once again, I think the community, there was a recognition that there were two streams of education in Nelson, that there was the tradition of a small liberal arts university, which I think NUC has been pursuing, and Kootenay School of the Arts was started again under the original name of Kootenay School of the Arts and carries on the tradition of visual arts with creative writing. And that's a 36-year tradition. in this community. And I think that that should be understood. It's been difficult for KSA to have members of the community viewing us as breaking up what some people see as a single tradition, ignoring our long history of being an independent school in this community since 1958. A history of serving this community for over 35 years. As a school, we've been growing rapidly. We now have 256 people taking courses at 3 different campuses. We can now announce that we have come to agreement with the provincial government and Emily Carr College of Art and Design to offer the full first-year program transferable to Emily Carr with credit in 1994-95 session. The student loans available to our full-time students. It is my feeling that the people of this region should be proud to have 2 groups of volunteers working very hard to continue the traditions of this community. And it's our hope that we'll be able to come to some resolution of this issue and that everything will work out for the community for the best, I guess.
Okay.
A thing we call Kootenay School of Writing in Vancouver, which was an attempt to build a post-secondary institution from 4 bare walls, much the same as has gone on here on the part of both NUCN and KSA. And personally, I have just tremendous respect for both attempts. As David Lawson said, to me they seem complementary to each other and not at all hostile. And so the issue then, I think, before council is just the best use to make of educational resources for both groups to use. And really that's about it. All I would add, other than to endorse David's statement that the integration of both the fine arts and programs like creative writing or drama was a part of David Thompson's part of the Kootenay School of Writing in Vancouver, where we had our own gallery art speak, and I was very, very pleased when KSA kept it going here too. So it seems a natural development out of a kind of really educational trailblazing that's going on in this community, in which I think this community can be really proud of, and it's just great to see that continue. The fact that the resources need perhaps to be in 2 places at once, I think just speaks to the strength and diversity of people's commitment to education in this community. And again, I think it's something to be proud of, that so much can go on here.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, we have one more person, I think, from that group. Ron, are you here, Ron Welwood?
I'm Mayor, but I have nothing to add to what has already been said, but I would answer questions concerning the library.
Okay, when we get to that point. Okay. Charlie Jeans,
I'm a recent immigrant to Nelson. I've talked to a lot of young people and a lot of young parents, and there are 2 families that moved to the area because the Nelson University Center was there, and their children range in age somewhere between 5 and 10. And their feeling was that if they came here, their children could spend the first 2 years of university here rather than be shipped off to a big city by themselves. And we all know that young kids in their first year university particularly, they get into the party route, they are not used to the way you study in the university, and they crash. And these parents do not want this for their children. They want them to be able to come to, they expect this. They expect their children to be able to step from the secondary school into Nelson University, and they're shocked when I tell them that they better not count on that it's not all that certain. And I did some figuring just financially. If you have to send your child outside for room and board and travel expenses, it comes to $10,600 per year per child. And if you've got 2, and that's 1 year, and I don't think it's fair to yank the rug and fragment these libraries so that other universities will say, well, you don't have the resources to make a degree program feasible. So that's how I feel.
Okay, thank you. Francis?
Should I remind Mrs. Putnam that we have Selkirk College here?
That's community college here. It's not a university.
It has 2 years transferable to our universities. Both my children have done 2 years at Selkirk College and immediately gone to 3rd year university at the coast.
Where?
So our children,
In Nelson?
it's at Selkirk College, which is in Castlegar. It's a 30-minute drive, and it's our community college that we support.
Yeah. Well, I think the Nelson University Center is a university center.
Thank you, Mayor Ramsden and Councillors. I did phone somewhat late Monday morning, Friday morning, sorry.
Just for our viewers and if we have your name.
Yeah, right, it's Philip Bacon.
Yeah.
And I am a retired academic with some 15 years experience teaching and administering a department at the University of Lethbridge, and that was preceded by 12 years in applied mathematics and physics, working on behalf of industry. So in that time I used 2 kinds of libraries, both the academic library and the technical scientific. So I speak with some little knowledge of libraries from the practical point of view of the user and the teacher. And I've come to speak in opposition to the Rotering proposal as it stands at present. The DTUC library collection is not a serious collection for a liberal arts academic program, which nowadays must include science. Almost any university that offers an academic program in the liberal arts requires the students to take a minimum number of science and mathematics courses. And the DTUC collection was tailored to DTUC's requirements at the time that it existed. And since DTUC had only a few university transfer courses, it did not have a full academic program then. There are no science or mathematics books, for example, and as far as I can tell, there was very little in the social sciences as well. I have looked at the collection about 2 years ago. I looked through the collection. And there's a question of the building. Now, the building was leased to CIC, but not the books. So the books have no home over there where they are now. The roof leaks and the shelves are covered with plastic to protect the books. But the books are bound to suffer damage if there's any leaks at all because the humidity can't be controlled. Both CIC and NUC are private enterprises. The first is a for-profit private enterprise. And while the books are public property, and that should be taken into account considering Rotering's resolution. The Rotering resolution would transfer this public property to private hands without any compensation to the public who are the real owners, and I find this unacceptable. A home is available in the Nelson City Library's first floor. They have a large amount of empty space now. They didn't have a year ago.
Our chief librarian does not agree with you.
They don't have a large amount of space.
They don't. Deb has measured it entirely for me, the space they have, and it won't hold the collection.
Well, that space, what space there is then could be, what books are stored there, would be stored there, would be of use to everyone, including NUC faculty and students. Now, the DTUC Library Trustees Committee broadly represents the public interest, I think it's fair to say, and is competent to select books to be saved for Nelson City. And they are willing to undertake the work of culling the books from the DTUC collection that would be of value and of general interest to the public at large and not just to NUC. In summary, then, the DTUC collection is so poor as the university collection that NUC would not suffer much from culling general interest books and their reshelving the public library. In their new home, they will enjoy proper temperature and humidity, secure from rain and snow, and be available to all, including faculty and students. I would strongly recommend that this committee, the DTUC committee, be directed by council to select all the valuable books and arrange for the transfer to the Nelson Public Library, the remainder to be given to NUC.
A person or a student that would like to know.
Well, I'd like to say a few words.
Roberta Griffiths. I was in charge of the library from 1984.
I'll acknowledge, Roberta, we have a letter from you circulated
Yes, and
tonight.
that's for your own personal, not for the public, that's for the council.
Okay.
I think there are two questions that should be asked. I'd like to ask Ron Welwood how much he thinks it would cost to even bring the library that's there up to standard, not adding any new subjects to science and stuff now. And also, where is all this money going to come from?
Ron, would you like to respond at this point, sir? Are you prepared for a question then?
Well, it's a very difficult question because you build collections based on what you're trying to support. In other words, courses. If you don't know the courses, then of course you don't know that, but I suspect it would be several $1 million. And that does not include building. Okay. And then of course you need operating funds for staff and so on. So it'll be quite a bit of money.
Thank you. Dave?
Yeah. My name is David Clark. I'm a resident of Nelson for, I guess, a respectable period of time. I fully support the transference of books to the Kootenay School of the Arts for their use. There seems to be an idea going around that this collection is valuable. I'd like to say that it's dead. It's dead just like the Norwegian blue parrot in Monty Python. It hasn't been fed for 20 years. You can go, well, there's some areas of the library which have respectable, half-decent collections. There are other areas which are horrible. There's nothing there for 30 years. And I know I've been up there. There's in areas such as anthropology, archaeology, biology, any of the sciences. So, who's going to pay the money to, quote, bring it up to scratch? Whatever criteria this is. There's lots of people, particularly a lot of people who live outside of Nelson, who are quite happy to have us residents shell out another $75 per year per family, which I believe is the average cost of operating the Nelson Municipal Library. But anyway, let's look at what it costs to operate a library. Because a library is more than just a collection of books up there. You have to have people who manage it, who can assist the users. The cost of staffing for the Nelson Municipal Library, and this includes benefits, is $243,000
per year.
The acquisition budget is very modest, $48,000 per year. Total operating costs of the municipal library is $355,000. The city of Nelson has one of the highest tax rates in all of BC. You add to that the various other forms of revenue, and we then have one of the highest expenditures, if not the highest per capita expenditure in all of BC. Maybe we're up there in the very top of any municipality in the country as per capita expenditure. Now, the other thing is, the question I'd like to address is post-secondary education in this area. This month marks the 10th anniversary in which the city of Nelson was betrayed by the social credit government. When they were receiving approximately $500 more per student in federal grants than they were spending, the university was closed. David Thompson University Center was closed. This month, the provincial NDP government is going to make its recommendations based on the Fulton Commission. We will no doubt be betrayed again as ignominiously and as basely as we were by the Socrates. Now, the idea seems to be that we need this university library to attract a university. it seems to me that this is a cargo cult idea. Remember in New Guinea, when the natives of the highlands first met the white soldiers of the U.S. Army flying into bases and bringing all of these wonderful goods from their cargo planes. And they thought that they could attract these white gods with their wonderful cargoes after they had left. So they would cut a strip in the wilderness, in the jungle, and they'd string up lianas from tree to tree. They'd put a little, what they thought was a control tower, and sat and waited for the gods to bring the cargo. Well, the library seems to me, the people who are supporting NDU because it will, or the library up there, because we need it to attract the university. The mentality here is exactly that of the cargo cult. If there's any chance of getting a library, a university, it will come not because we have a decrepit old library. The last point I'd like to make is that books are disappearing out of that collection. I went up there last fall with my daughter to help her with one of her reports. She's a student at Selkirk. And the several books, which I had read a few years ago, had all disappeared. There is a number of excellent introductory books, which would be of value to the Nelson Municipal Library. Which books are selected, if this decision is made for the Nelson Municipal Library, should be made with the consultation of the librarian, the head librarian of the Nelson Municipal Library. But the books up there are, as has been pointed out, deteriorating because of the lack of climate control and because of outright theft. The present condition is intolerable. The library hours are scant. There's not the people there to man it properly. We're forced, I think, to make. There's only one reasonable decision we can reach, and I think this is to see where the books can best be used. And some of them for the Kootenay School of the Arts, some of them the Nelson Municipal Library. Maybe others, like there's an extensive collection of books on the Roman Catholic Church, maybe these should be donated to the diocese. Now I'm speaking this not as an adherent of...
Would Howie like to speak first?
No, I asked you to speak.
All right. So, well, what I have to say is very different from what I've been listening to here. But first of all, Mr. Mayor and members of council, I want to thank you very much for having this period. I think it's too bad it's so short, but anyway. I am not here representing DTUC Support Society or KSA or anybody else. I'm here representing me and what I think is part of the community. I, as a member of this community, have had a unique and very lengthy relationship with this library. And I think most of you know what that has been. During the last few months, I have had many people come up to me and say, "You've been very quiet about the library. Why haven't you said anything about it?" Well, to be honest with you, I felt I did not want to get mixed up into this terrible political controversy that was going on about the library. However, Councillor Rotering's memorandum has brought me here tonight. And if you'll bear with me, I would like to make a few comments on the wording and the content of this memo. And before I go on, I'd like to point out, first of all, that the name of this library is not the DTUC Library. It is the David Thompson Library, so named in 1984 when it was taken over as a community library. All right, so I will refer to it as that. First of all, I agree in principle with this resolution. And that resolution is to turn over the responsibility for the collection to the agencies, which is NUC and also KSA, both of these agencies having in their mandate responsibility for the development of post-secondary education within this community. And having said that, I would like to suggest certain conditions, and that these conditions be stipulated in the contractual arrangements which are made. First, that ownership, underlined, of the total collection remain with the city, but possession, underlined, of the two parts of the collection be given to the KSA Society and the NUCE Society, and that the nonprofit operation of the respective branches be made, and the responsibility of those societies. Second, that certain operational conditions be met. First, that an inventory of the respective holdings take place prior to taking responsibility or shortly after. What will be procedures for identifying assets which are added by these agencies, for example? Secondly, the security of the collection must be addressed. Will the facilities be safe? Will the KSA facility be suitably renovated to house the art and writing sections needed by KSA and Kootenay School of the Writing students? Who will be responsible for the upkeep of the deteriorating CIC library building? These questions, I think, have to be answered before we write any contracts. And finally, a security system, a proper system, should be in place at both facilities. 3, that circulation and use policies must be clearly stated, particularly in relation to community use. 1, that community use must be guaranteed within that contract. 2, that there must be no membership and no user fees charged for the use of this public asset. 3, if the community is not satisfied with the operation of one of these branches, to whom would they appeal? We don't like what's happening, where do we go? 4, some form of monitoring must be set up, at least in the beginning, to determine whether contractual agreements are in place and to assist with problems growing out of the transfer of this responsibility. Does the city plan to have any sort of annual review, or will the matter be left entirely to these agencies and council will just hope for the best? And finally, if either KSA or NUC ceases to exist or no longer wants to operate part of the collection assigned to it, I would strongly recommend that the Nelson Municipal Library be given the option to take over their part of the collection. In other words, I believe the document is incomplete in its present form, and it's my hope the council will consider rewording, some rewording, and reconsideration of the content prior to the acceptance of this proposal. It is time that this issue is settled. Council for years has wanted to dispose of this responsibility. My personal preference has been, through the years, to have had the DTL collection and the Nelson Municipal Library collection housed together in town, where everyone could have improved access. That has not been possible to date. Although the David Thompson Library collection is out of date and needs a long overdue culling and rebuilding, it is still a valuable asset. Hopefully, with this division of the collection, long-term planning can take place. With the archives and special collection located now at the Nelson Municipal Library and Museum, with the art collection and appropriate periodicals for the Kootenay School of Writing located in the new KSA premises, and the major part of the collection on the CIC campus, hopefully the needs of the community, and particularly its students, can be served. I want to thank Councillor Rotering for his memo and hope that we can now put an end to the library being a political football. It is my sincere wish that this division into two branches will put an end to the absurd exaggeration and distortion of facts which have so divided this community. The descriptions of the collection have become such that I began to wonder if this was the same library in which I had spent so many nights sleeping on the floor and so many days trying to save it for this community. I heartily wish both NUCE and KSA well in their undertaking, And let's, for gosh sakes, let's all of us try to make it work together. Thank you very much.
I have a request. Can we have your photocopy them and get back to you? It would help our deputy clerk for our notes. And thank you very much, Betty. Mrs. Norris?
I would like to say thank you too, because the sincerity that Betty has just talked about the library. No other politics, the library, which she has talked about. And I would say that several of her suggestions would be excellent to consider. Before I submit the statement I've been asked to give on behalf of the NUC Education Society, I would like to preface this with a few important remarks. And in our view, because of the strong position on behalf of the library, which the society and the university has taken, it's important for the City Council and for the Nelson community to know of the tremendous amount of agonizing which has taken place in our deliberations in dealing with this issue of the resolution from City Council. This resolution has been a very difficult and hard compromise for us to consider. Also, with respect to developing a university, some of you people have not read the paper. We are developing a university right now. We have a transfer agreement and affiliation with Gonzaga University. The transfer agreement is for 2 years courses taken at NUC towards a degree. The last 2 years will be taken at Gonzaga, which means that students now coming to NUC can be assured of a degree. And with that in mind, we are anxious to get the library collection, the BT library collection resolved. We want to get on, put our energy and on with the business of continuing to develop a degree granting experience and opportunities for students. Okay, with all that, I would like now to read the statement that we prepared. Regarding the David Thompson Library collection, although NUC Education Society considers the David Thompson Library collection, DTL, as an integral body of materials important for all people in the community, as well as vital for the offering of courses in philosophy, religion, history, literature, fine arts, and other subjects, which are cardinal to the core curriculum of the Nelson University Center program. And in view of the previous City Council's decision to permit a portion of the collection, such as the arts category books, and items to be relocated somewhere else in the city, and because of the proposed resolution presented by Councillor Rotering, NUC Education Society accedes to the transfer of the proposed ownership of the remaining portion of the DTL collection to the NUC Education Society, providing the transfer agreement, ownership agreement is binding, and providing there is a mechanism to determine which art category items are going to be needed. I thank you very much for this evening.
Well, I thank you, members of the public, and those who are so vitally interested in our situation. And if we have to come back and ask you to come to another meeting, I'll do that. You've given us a lot of information, and that's what Councillor Rotering asked for. And I thank you for your patience and indulgence. It's not the easiest work.
Thank you for working on positions that always been good.
But in ownership or possession, if either agency fails to live up to a contract outlined by the NUC or they cease to exist with respect to the city, so it's covered in that way, but they have to take responsibility.
She elaborated on what
Council and members of the audience will resume our regular meeting. Also, in regards to the library issue, we have received 2 letters, one from Mr. Peter Ferris and one from Mr. David Fairbank, and there was no one here to speak for them, but I want them to know they were received as part of the meeting.
We received Mr. Fairbanks. I didn't issue on the Fairbanks.
We can get the copy too. Yeah.
gonna be making the decision.
You wanna see it now? Okay.
Is that Betty Daniels?
Betty read hers out, we kept it for future reference. Frances Welwood has sent one earlier, I think you all got a copy of it, that she spoke tonight, so that's part of the agenda. I'll ask the administrator to continue with the agenda.
Going back to item 4, we're on to item 4F. Everything I heard this evening leads me to move the resolution as presented on the January 31st with the change that we properly refer to it as the David Thompson Library.
Okay, you're making that motion, Councillor Rotering?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
A seconder for the motion?
Second.
Councillor Bond. Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I can, we were implored this evening to resolve this issue. You heard several people implore the council to resolve the issue, albeit they may have taken slightly different positions on the collection. As you know, my proposed resolution, which was worked out in consultation with the administrator and run past the committee, the Library Management Committee, that we have struck by bylaw, and which people in the audience this evening, you heard trust implicitly because some asked them to refer this back to that committee. That committee did endorse this concept. The resolution also, as you know, is preliminary in that all it does is authorize the drafting of contracts, which must be signed with many conditions attached to them before the change takes place in the ownership and management of the David Thompson Library collection in what is now its 2 parts. Particularly those comments by Betty Daniel, who, as you know, was a leader of the sit-in that preserved that collection for the community, have been noted by the clerk and by myself and can be incorporated into those contracts. I've spent some time the past few weeks and consulted with the administrator and with Frances Welwood's research assistants. I've tried to understand the difference between ownership and possession. And with the contractual requirements that I propose and that you don't have before you, but which you can imagine, with those coming to council and approved by council and signed by the societies before anything can take place, I think you'll see that there will be very little difference between ownership and right of possession. A good example would be the city streets. The city of Nelson doesn't own them. The province of BC owns them, but we have possession of them. In a practical sense, as you know, we own them. So do we own them or do we possess them? In fact, there's very little difference between the two because we have the obligation on behalf of our citizens to run them well and maintain them. And such would be the requirement with the portions of the David Thompson Library collection. What I'm saying is that with the contractual obligations that the 2 societies will have to sign before anything happens, it will amount to possession. Because if they renege on any of the requirements of those contracts, possession will revert to the city. There were several suggestions that there's no guarantee of the future for these portions of the collection. Of course not. And there's no guarantee under the ownership of the city either of the future of the collection. As I told everyone, this resolution would only get politics out of the way. It would only allow the focus of the societies that are utilizing the collection, and it would only stop a debate that you heard the public this evening beg to be relieved of. At some point, we simply have to trust our community. We have to trust the societies that have existed for several years and that are providing post-secondary education in addition to the provincially sponsored agencies such as Selkirk College. Do we trust these societies? We've trusted KSA to establish an art school. We've trusted them to be housed in City Hall. We've trusted them with a studio in our electrical building and with possession of our health unit building at a fraction of its real value. Do we trust
the Nelson University Center Society. We've trusted them to basically manage that collection for several years. We've trusted that society to represent our cause to the provincial government. I think we can trust them to own these collections with contracts of condition. There's numerous editings that could take place with this resolution, but in reviewing that with the administrator, this resolution simply indicates the intent of council, and I suppose one could edit and correct it endlessly. All it does is indicate what we want to do. The contracts will speak in terms of law and binding arrangements, and it might be a month or 2 or 3 before they come forward, as staff and legal assistance allow. It's a nervous thing to do. It's a scary thing to do, to relinquish the political control of this collection. It's been very important to us. It involved a sit-in that went on for about a third of a year and was news across this country. It still is an important collection. We can't throw it away. We have to pass the torch. And I think the time to do that is now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rotering. I see a lot of silence around the room. It is going to be a momentous occasion and a tough time, and some groups are not going to accept what you're proposing, Councillor Rotering, and I think that it takes a little courage. I know with proper advice and legal advice, we'll draw up contracts, and I'm sure that in the next coming months we'll come to good agreements with the agencies that are most concerned. Councillor Grill?
Just a comment I'd like to make on some of the comments that were made by the public. If the collection was of no value or obsolete, as Mr. Clark stated, I can't understand why the groups are want such a demand of these particular books. Mr. Mayor, also there's been a number of graduates from the city of Nelson, from NUC, and if those books are of no value to them, well, why did they graduate? And there were some very prominent people, and Mr. Kootenay is one of them that's involved in environments in Ottawa. He was one of the graduates from that particular school. The other thing I'm really disappointed, Mr. Mayor, in an extent, they were well aware that the library was open only 3 days a week, and it was limited in the time of operation. Nobody came forth from the group to offer their service and say, well, we'll leave it open for 5 days, we'll help them out. That's another comment. And the other comment is on the state of the roof. Mr. Babbitt, I guess, wrote a letter to council. I was not on council for 3 years' time. I don't think they're destitute. CIC is destitute in any way. The arrangement we had with the librarian that we fund part of his or her salaries just went through the winds in 1992, and that was the beginning of the end. It was a doomed library from then on in, Mr. Mayor, and you know that. These are the comments I want to make to the press, that there was a lot of innuendos stated tonight, this evening, and then I hope that we put the best foot forward and get the best comments and amalgamate it into a decent contract. And that's just a comment I want to make, Mr. Mayor. I do have a vested interest in the library because I used to work in the bingo for the Catholic Knights of Columbus, and we purchased books for that library. So I, more than anyone, perhaps has some vested interest in that. And I'm sorry and sad that they wouldn't help one another. And I think that was a... Well,
maybe the good will come out of this.
Yes, I think it will. But I want to make that perfectly clear to the press. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bond.
I think it's important that as a community library, that the books be best used where they best serve the purpose. If NUC has need for some KSA and other groups, it's important that it remains in the community and there's access available by the community, not necessarily that it's in one spot. I think adoption of this resolution tonight, I concur with Councillor Rotering, moves us forward to possibly an agreement, signing contracts with both groups.
Councillor Bond.
Well, in all of the presentations tonight, although a lot of them weren't really speaking to this resolution, I only heard one group, and that was NUC, in support of this resolution, in support of the concept of transferring ownership. And that's where I trip up, is on transferring ownership. I just do see this as a community collection and a community asset. And I find it difficult to think of transferring ownership to other bodies. Councillor Rotering argues effectively that there's very little difference between possession and ownership. In that case, I would suggest that we stay with the city having possession and the two other groups having ownership then, if there's little difference, and all of the details and the conditions of that possession can be laid out contractually as tightly as the conditions of ownership.
Councillor Donald, coming back there, we meant the city retained ownership.
Yes.
And you said it the other way around.
Oh, did I?
Yes, and the other two have possession. I just wanted to be sure I understood this.
So the city retained ownership, yes.
Okay.
And the conditions of possession to the other two groups be laid out as carefully as they would be were the other way.
Well, that's what I was alluding to in the beginning statement, that I think that when we work through this and come back with the legal advice and administration, we can maybe have that change slightly. I understand your concern.
I guess just finally, I think we're trying to get politics out of the way. This isn't really the way to do it, that we're just going to trip over this because it's going to be very hard for people, for the community to understand that we are giving away this library.
Okay. Councillor Taylor, any comments?
It's kind of gone round and round, and I listened to this, and I'd like to see us do something definitive with it, and not be, having this come back again in 3 months, 4 months, and I'd like some of the language that Betty Daniels used incorporated into this agreement. She's probably, to my knowledge anyway, has worked hardest at and seen both sides of this issue. And I think that we can probably work with something that Councillor Rotering has come up with here.
Okay. I think we've had a long discussion, long night on this subject. Yeah. Please vote clearly. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Councillor Donald is recorded.
Those representing KSA, you've got a draw for a beautiful stove. I'll come up there. We get to pull a ticket for someone to win a beautiful wood burning stove.
Or natural gas.
Or natural gas. Get your option.
We want all the people that represent the DTUC. This is actually the DTUC Support Society has raised the money to give to KSA for audiovisual equipment to support the courses there.
Right.
And this is Mr. Aurelian Dupuy, Mark Dupuy, father, and he represents Kootenay Wood Stove that donated the stove.
Right.
Pauline Hughes from the DTUC Support Society, and I think you know Betty. And I think you know me. And we're just hoping that one of you guys is supposed to take a picture.
Just finished doing it.
It was supposed to be Pauline's friend, Patrick.
No, that was Eddie, you would come.
Oh, okay. Here's the strongest one. Would you hold the pot and American store? Yeah. Stir them up.
Eh? So I can't look in. I drew the one on Saturday for the Shuzenji Friendship Society, and Evelyn Cartlidge won that. They were just
that's okay.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
You're going to tell us who it is?
Yep.
Pull the right one down. I did.
Vern Helixson?
Helixson.
Vern Helixson.
Vern Helixson.
All right. And I will phone him up.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
I think it's a wonderful thing. I want to raise some money.
We'll have raised about $2,400.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Some questions of you. We'll try not to put you on the spot too much.
Thank you very much. I sort of came so you could support the Kootenay School of the Arts application under the Canada BC Infrastructure Program. Or if we can insert the word total funding, because it's often confusing whether our money is additional, but it's total funding of $1.8 million, capital construction of a project to house new facilities for the Kootenay School of the Arts, and based on the city's contribution to be a maximum of $300,000. Was that
You want to make that motion then?
Yeah. Yeah, so moved.
Seconder?
Second.
Councillor Neville, discussion to follow.
Mr. Mayor, perhaps I could introduce the item and speak to it. it's fair to say that I make this motion with mixed feelings in that I think all of us around the table are extremely enthusiastic about the development of post-secondary education opportunities in Nelson. And I've listed a rationale here. I just typed off the top of my head this afternoon and looked at the notes, and Council is on record time and time again since the early 80s in forming a society to develop post-secondary education, in funding NUC for many years, in funding the David Thompson Library, in providing office space for the Kootenay School of the Arts when it was revived, our community plan, our economic development plans, more recently, resolutions of council from, for example, if I can hold them up for council to see, June 20th of this very year, all current members of council, other than new member Jay, were there. All councillors in this room this afternoon unanimously supported a resolution supporting KSA and talking about the Victoria Street substation building and how we're going to participate in creating an additional part of a art school campus in that building. Shortly thereafter, Mr. Mayor, June of this year, you signed a letter of understanding with the Minister responsible for post-secondary education of British Columbia, committing the city and the province of British Columbia to cooperating to make that facility happen. The mixed feelings come in, of course, because we would much rather have the province of BC, perhaps with the Premier flying into town on a jet, waving a big check in the hand, saying, you know, here's your $2, $3, or $4 million, here's your campus, congratulations, Nelson, and fly out again. It's been clear for some time now that that is not going to happen during this term of this government, that the government and the MLA are working very, very hard, have been working with this council to try to nail down KSA with degree granting status, now by affiliation with Emily Carr School of Fine Arts. But that the simple cash approach from the province alone is not going to happen. And the mechanism of the infrastructure works program that the MLA has been working on for about a year, and for which application, by the way, was temporarily delayed by design considerations, although the MLA has been pursuing that option for some time. The bottom line is that our commitment is now tested. That if we want provincial funding, this is the only umbrella under which the government can now provide this campus facility for our city. And it means that we've got to contribute 15 cents on the dollar to get basically a $2 million capital construction project. So it's with mixed feelings because we don't have $300,000 kicking around. And we may not even know tonight where we're going to get it. But my reaction is, and I hope that of other councillors, is that we must find it. Because KSA is a success story. It's an economic value, and I think we owe it to our downtown business tax-paying community to deliver on the development of this kind of economic activity downtown. This is more than just another retail activity downtown. This is a cultural amenity, an educational amenity. It has status. It's affiliated with a degree-granting, provincially accredited university or institution. I don't know what the correct term is. Mr. Hunter, I think Mr. Hunter will correct me on some of these precise points. But I think we owe it to downtown Nelson business taxpayers, from a very conservative business point of view, who are going to be paying the taxes to make this kind of investment possible. This is a terrific investment. This is spinning gold. This is going to give us 15 cent dollars with which to develop campus and infrastructure right downtown. I think those are the points I need to make, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Discussion around the table. Councillor Neville.
I think Councillor Rotering has said most of the points in favour. I'd just like to add, I think KSA itself is demonstrated by the number of students that participate in the school. It's a very viable situation if it has community support, and I think this is the opportunity for us to give them a big hand up and to allow them to proceed and I think over time that kind of funding will be more than paid back to the community and add to the culture and education life that we have somewhat missed since DTUC closed, and I'd certainly like to see a viable campus around the downtown again.
Okay. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, Your Worship. I first heard about this proposal this morning, and I was had a lot of questions, and they still haven't been answered. I think everybody in the community is supportive of post-secondary education, and but to the point, this government has been on record as saying that they were going to support post-secondary education, and I think that's the role of a provincial government to fund and support. We had spent part of a day in deliberations with this infrastructure program, prioritizing, and unfortunately the KSA, I don't think it even came up in discussion. We prioritized.
You're right.
Money was allotted, and to what the projects that we had in place, and I thought that all the money had been spoken for. That it was for this program.
Can we just stop you there at that point?
Okay.
Come back to your other ones. I think Councillor Macdonald has something in for a while.
I think the Infrastructure Works program, 85% of the funding was designated for basic infrastructure, and those are the projects that we prioritized, and that's the money that we've got for the sewage treatment plant and for the sewer lines. And the road, West Richard Street. So that's the 85%. Now what's left yet to be allocated is the 15% of the program funds, and that's for facilities such as education, recreation, whatever. And I think it's also important to realize that it is it's a 2/3 funding. Well, it's a three-way funding agreement, so provincial, federal, municipal. So if you take the $1.8 million, the local share is $600,000. The other 600 from the province and 600 from the federal government. So it's important to realize that half of the local contribution is being made by Kootenay School of the Arts themselves out of their own budget, and so the city is only paying 1/6 of the total budget cost.
Okay, that's what I was going to add.
Okay, and I guess without something detailed in front of me as to where we're going to be coming up with $300,000, I really have.
Okay. All right. Around the room some more. Councillor Taylor, I would like just for you to think about that. We're going to have to find that $300,000 during budget discussions, because it is not of this year's budget is going to come from. We make this is a actual proposal for funding, and we haven't guaranteed that it's happened. We have an opportunity here, a window that opens suddenly. It wasn't there weeks ago. When they were doing their allotments, sometimes other groups don't accept or continue or are unable to continue with their funding, and this money's there. It's the only opportunity we had. And it came up very suddenly. Like Friday afternoon when I met with Finance Minister Cull from 1 to 2, it wasn't talked about. It was 10 after 2 when I got the call about it. Others were in knowledge of it, but I wasn't. Okay, over on this side of the table. Councillor Jay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I guess I should start by saying that I wholeheartedly support KSA and its endeavors and believe that it's important, not only for Nelson's cultural but economic well-being. However, I can't quite agree that this motion and supporting the application is a test of our commitment, but rather one of priorities and of due process. And to that, I mean, there's a couple of concerns that I do have. To start with, I guess that one of them is that the building to which we're discussing, the substation on Josephine Street, it's my understanding that at this point that hasn't been factored into the funding formula as being contributory towards our 1/3 or our half of 1/3.
The land and building.
I do appreciate the fact that KSA is willing to put forward such an investment on their part, and that's, all kudos to them for that kind of commitment and resolve. It's just that I would like to have at least seen that particular building counting somehow as a contribution in kind on the city's part. My other point is that as I've sat around this council over the last couple of months, I've quickly learned that we've been told that city is strapped for cash with regards to capital expenditures. And yet we've seemed to indicate a willingness to try to find another additional $300,000 for our portion of the $1.8 million project. We're currently in, through no fault of anyone on council, a $471,000 cost overrun on our hydroelectric project. We're looking at an additional $360,000 for the arcade improvements, for structural improvements.
That's already budgeted.
No, I do realize that, but I mean, this is capital expenditures that we are looking at undertaking again, and I'm just not certain that, to be consistent with what we've been talking about around council is that, we are strapped for money. Furthermore, I've also participated in discussions with council regarding the possibility of applying for infrastructure works grants, as Councillor Macdonald alluded to, the 15%. I guess I should ask before I continue is it was my understanding that the deadline for grant application had passed for this. I don't know if that's true or not.
From the MLA and the discussion I had with him on Friday and other discussions on the weekend, they closed it sometime this afternoon. Our notice of intent to send an application in went in on Friday, and they held it until they could have it in actual hand today.
Is that for this particular grant
for this
application?
15% of the cultural, the door closed this afternoon.
Because, my point was going to be then that as far as in light of the collapsed leisure complex referendum and our application there about having it amended or something to address that issue as well. And I guess perhaps my last point, and most importantly, was I am somewhat concerned with the lack of due process that was given to this issue. I believe that this type of decision and its implications for Nelson should be given due process. And if it closed at noon, as you're aware of, I think it was rather sudden that we have this thrown at us and not have the opportunity, because essentially it's already gone ahead as an application, and here we are discussing and debating it after the fact. And that's a large concern that I have. And, I started out by saying that I agree with KSA. I support their endeavors and what they're doing. But if I'm going to err, I'd rather err on this side of due process and giving the public its say.
Well, Councillor Jay, I couldn't agree more, but there are times when a decision has to be made and process has to happen, and we can't have, as you're calling it, the due process and the time we'd all like. KSA people and the project that Councillor Bond has just got involved with on the design of the building committee, that suddenly came together in time, and that's very honest. 2 o'clock Friday afternoon, what am I going to do? The paperwork wasn't done, there was nothing signed till yesterday, and the process had to go ahead today. You have to take a chance, and I took the chance, and others agreed. I can't give you any more solace than that. It's not a comfortable, easy thing to do, but sometimes they happen that fast. Councillor Bond.
Yes, well, I wholeheartedly agree with all of the positives that have been said about KSA, and personally have been a strong supporter of them for a number of years and working towards seeing this become a reality. The reality also is what's been expressed by Councillor Rotering and Jane and a couple of others, is the financial
It's
implications.
a big concern, I don't disagree at all.
And it's with where are we going to come up with the 300,000 is what keeps going through my head. We can come up with it, but not at the expense of other projects or priorities. And it's a dilemma. I know it's this little window of time for KSA to realize this kind of funding from both the province and the federal government, but it's not without careful consideration that we must consider what this does to our 95 budget.
Has major impact.
In the phone around, we're still getting over this cold, so excuse my voice here. In the phone around poll that was done this morning, it was an extremely difficult decision for me to make. As I say, I've been a strong supporter of KSA and has worked on their behalf while at the Economic Development Commission. This morning I had to vote no for this, not no for KSA, but because of the extreme difficulty I was feeling in terms of, as a city councillor, making this kind of financial commitment based on the discussions we've had around this table in the past few months as to our financial commitments that we're committed to, as well as what we hope to do in the next year at the Civic Centre, is the prime one that comes to my mind. After hearing all of this tonight, and after having had more chance to deliberate this throughout the day, again, it's extremely difficult to vote no and to think that other colleagues around this table may vote no, and that KSA's dream may not be realized. It's not an easy decision either way.
Well
So
said.
just not to, I guess, stress the importance of the decision that we are making tonight.
It's not easy. I agree. Councillor Rotering.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to pick up on something very specific that Councillor Jay said. He was concerned that we weren't getting credit for the contribution of the building. Council should know that the MLA, who coincidentally happened to be at the same meeting I was at yesterday, so Councillor Macdonald and I had a chance to hear from him about this, and we very bluntly expressed some of our concerns, I can tell you, and he's carrying our concerns about the implications for our city back to Victoria. But he said, look, all I can do is put the opportunity in front of council. It's up to you. If you choose to afford it, we hope to have KSA's application through. But very specifically, he mentioned at that time that he had suggested, and probably to other people around the table, and probably KSA, and probably actually to you, Mr. Mayor, that the building not be used right now as counted contribution, but that we hold that in reserve for the potential of doing this type of thing again later, and get something further later for the contribution of the building. Right now what they need is capital money to rebuild the building and add a story to it and develop a proper campus studios location. They're very aware of the value of the building and the cost, and I have a further proposed resolution I was just scribbling down on pursuing more provincial assistance to vacate the building and display our fire trucks. He says, hold that in reserve. We'll use that yet. Give you credit for it. Maybe if I can, Mr. Mayor, I hope I'm not speaking too much, but it has been difficult for all of us, and I'm not surprised that some councillors aren't sure which way to jump on this. Neither was I when I first heard about it, but the problem we have with politics in the real world is that we don't control the entire agenda. And we have a government that has a policy commitment to restoring degree-granting education in Nelson, and as the Minister of Finance told, I think you and Treasurer Mosley on Friday, they can't afford to do everything they want to do. At the same time, there are mechanisms that have been pursued for many months. It is not spur of the moment. The MLA has been working on this kind of thing for months. The application's been pending. It was delayed with design considerations. But the opportunity was laid before us suddenly because it was either jump or don't jump. And the MLA decided to assist us to jump. But the option is ours. The MLA has not committed us. KSA is not able to commit council. KSA has put its money on the table. There's a proposal that we can either agree to or graciously decline. And we can decline it. But in real politics, sometimes what comes before you is an opportunity to generate a lot more value for the money you put on the table. There is no recreation project available to us right now where we can contribute even 1/3, which is twice the ratio here. Even 1/3. If we put $300,000 on the table tonight, Councillor Jay, we don't know where we'd find the other 2/3 for the project. And even if the province had its 1/3 on the table, or the feds, we don't have any mechanism in place for regional cost sharing or user group support to make that project happen. This might not be our first choice. In terms of post-secondary education, nobody on KSA is unaware that I supported academic education first. But this is the government's choice. The government supports KSA. We've come to support KSA. And that's the only thing that's offered. And I think we have to take it and accomplish not necessarily what we would design from the outset, but what's possible.
Councillor Neville.
Your Worship, I share the concerns about the money that have been expressed around the table, but I'd like to say I think you had some guts to make a commitment to this before you were able to get full support from the council. I think this is one of those special opportunities for the city, and I just reflect back, being as I'm a little old in the tooth, but we went out on a limb and bought the Capitol Theatre in 1979, and we supported the streetcar project in 1980. We built the new public workshop, not first because we needed one, but so that we could sell a piece of land to keep a company or bring a company to town, KMC, in order to build the community economy. We also went out on a limb and either foolishly or with a lot of guts, and I think it was the latter, took over the DTUC campus when the province was no longer prepared to keep it open. And, you can call them foolish, and if they don't work, they are foolish, I guess, but I think those were all tremendous projects for the community, and I think if the other funding parts come into place, this would be a similar opportunity to build our community economic base and the right kind of economic base that suits Nelson. So I think I have to support it, and we have to find the funds if the application is successful.
Any of you have a chance to look at the actual proposal? There, I think Councillor Rotering has. It's there to look at and have a study of it. And the plans are in there, which includes a third floor, which includes an elevator, and protects our electrical utility in there, seals that portion of the building off, and makes it a very viable situation for us that we don't have to jump out into an opportunity that we were looking at that with $7 million. That was panicking everyone around the room, I think, into how we were ever going to accomplish that. And I think that the design committee and what's been put forward here is just an excellent opportunity for us to get involved. And I appreciate that everybody's concerned that it's not a comfortable situation knowing where we're at. I don't think we have another opportunity that can come to our table and give everyone in the community a chance to have first-class art school here. And I think that KSA has stood their ground and done their job. We've been along with them, and I wish there was more for other post-secondary education, but I don't see that happening, and I agree with Councillor Rotering. Mr. Lawson, you wanted to say something?
One of the things that's looking at the proposal, we heard choice of going up ourselves, and what's come up, I think, since for us is that we would gladly enter into an agreement for the city would put up gave the city that $300,000 back. It's actually money seems to be the tradition
Thank you, Dave. I think the concern is around the table is valid, and I put my signatures to paper on saying that I'd rather look for 300,000 than 1.8 million. Easier to find that to make the group have a proper home. So, okay, so we're going to call. Make sure you clearly vote. All those in favor? And those opposed? Okay, Ms. Taylor, wish to be recorded? Motion is carried. Councillor Rotering.
Mr. Mayor, just chicken scratching. Could I move that the city pursue with the province funding to make possible removal of electrical functions from the Josephine Street substation and for the proper display of our antique fire truck or trucks? Trucks, plural.
Second. I think that's the biggest part of the cost is moving those trucks and into a proper storage that we have to find. It's a big part.
I didn't see any point in